right, folks, welcome on into another edition of Buffalo Game Day Recap, breaking down the Bills' 38-3 win over the Steelers. Another dominant performance by the Buffalo Bills. Joining me in Orchard Park is Sports Director Thad Brown. We'll start with that. Thad, another dominant win. What did you see from the sidelines in this victory today for the Bills?
Two things stuck out to me, AJ. Number one, this Bills offense the last couple weeks had become plodding. You know, they were moving up and down the field, but they were doing it one check down at a time. And you started to wonder maybe if teams were getting a blueprint on them. You drop three safeties deep, you drop two safeties deep, you zone up, keep the Bills in front of you. Look, you may not win a game, but at least you can slow them down. And I think in this game, the Bills proved that that strategy won't work, or at least teams can't just look at what Baltimore and Miami did and repeat it all the time. Now, it doesn't mean Pittsburgh went with that strategy today, but bottom line, the Bills' quick strike ability was back in this game, and it makes such a difference to be able to have an opportunity to go down the field, have an option there. Gabe Davis is not a speed receiver, he's not a burner, but he's good enough, obviously, to make big plays down the field. So seeing that part of the offense back and effective, I think was a big, big deal. And then number two, the Bills were missing so many players in this game, mostly on defense, but on both sides of the ball due to injury. There were a lot of younger players who stepped up and had big games. Khalil Shakir on offense, obviously 3 catches, 75 yards, the touchdown. He looked like a slot receiver that could play for a long time in this NFL. And then on defense, you know, I think Tyrel Dodson was the newer guy, not necessarily a younger guy, but the newer guy that kind of flashed the most for me. Regardless, you were missing both safeties, missing Tremaine Edmonds, Tre'Davious White obviously still out. Christian Benford didn't play in those games. Those are 5 guys who have started or are starters on this defense, and yet they only gave up 3 points. Now, look, I know it's Kenny Pickett, first ever start. You know, I thought Pickett actually played pretty solid in general, but this is obviously not, you know, the Chiefs. This is the Pittsburgh Steelers, a team that's rebuilding, to put it generously. I don't care. You only gave up 3 points to an NFL team in an NFL game. That's a good day for a squad that was missing, you know, half its guys. So I think those two were the points that impressed me the most in this game from the Bills.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Allen, he throws for 424 yards, a career high, and it's kind of just an afterthought at this point. You know, a career day for him. Whatever, let's talk about all the other stuff. Gabriel Davis certainly being healthier made such a big difference. It just shows how much of a difference having Diggs, having Davis on the outside, cooking at the same time just completely opens up the offense. You mentioned, you know, the big plays, you know, the 2 deep safety, things like that. I'm wondering if the Steelers didn't do a ton of that. They've been kind of known to stick to their bread and butter, do what they do, and, you know, not super adjust to the other team's strengths and flaws. So it just goes, if anything, this might make more 2 safety, 3 safety deep, because when they do allow Davis to go over the top, Diggs and things like that, you know, you just saw what happened. So I think, if anything, that's going to reinforce what, you know, teams going forward do. And you mentioned all the guys, you know, not playing in this game. You wonder going into this game if they would treat it like a bye week with the Chiefs coming up, and they kind of did. But the important thing is they didn't play like it was a bye week. There was, you know, maybe a little bit of problems early on. Allen missed some throws. He had Diggs open for a touchdown. There was, you know, the muff, which eventually turned into a 98-yard touchdown. But after that, it was business as usual. All those guys out, McKenzie, Poyer, Knox, Edmonds, Benford, Kumaro, you know, just the list goes on and on. Who knows how many of those could have started if, you know, if this was a playoff game, a must-win or do-or-die game. But they got their guys some rest. They got the young guys some playing time, and they looked really, really good while doing that. I think those are, you know, just definitely the 2 main points to take away from this game.
Yeah, AJ, I had the same thought as you, you know, wondering if maybe some of these guys aren't playing because of the Chiefs next week, and if the 2 games were scheduled the other way around, would more of those guys had play? I mean, you never know. You know, I don't think Sean McDermott ever overlooks a team. I don't think he's definitely going to ever overlook a Mike Tomlin coach team. But perhaps some of that weighed into it. And regardless, the team is pretty beat up. You know, at some point, you might just have to back off and say, we got to rest guys, because we're a team that expects to go deep into January. We can't mess around trying to win some game in week 5. Does it help that the team coming in is a rebuilding team with a rookie quarterback? Probably. But I'm not going to just blanket say that was what was happening. And I know you're not saying that either. The other thing I want to point out, too, with the deep balls that Josh Allen threw today, I don't know if you can tell, but it is a little windy here right now. The wind was up during the game. I didn't think it was game altering, but for a ball that was going to be in the air 50, 60 yards, yeah, that's something that's difficult to throw. for Allen to put both those long Davis touchdowns right on the fingertips, I was very impressed. And then going back to your Steelers point too about the type of defense they're going to play, it did occur to me that the Steelers seem to be running a little more man-to-man than probably teams should against this Bills offense, and it might have burned them. We'll wait and see, go back, look at the film, all that stuff. But regardless, the ability for the Bills to hit these big plays, even if they did it against a defense that teams probably should not be playing, to be able to say, okay, if you do this, we're going to kill you, I still think was going to pay some dividends down the road.
Yeah, and it just shows the importance. We talk about the depth on the outside, Diggs and Davis. When they're not there, it brings into the question of Odell Beckham Jr., things like that, the abundance of riches. Will they want to add more? It's a question for down the line, but certainly. And I also want to ask you, you backed off of your big talk about a Bills big blowout win. You lessened your prediction. You had this Bills minus 29.5. How much were you thinking of that in the second half, not making that bet?
Well, pretty much the entirety of the second half, I was definitely lamenting the fact that I had this game pegged and bailed because there just weren't enough healthy Bills players for me to feel confident about going with that big bet. Now, in the second half, I had the Bills minus 6.5, so that kept me occupied, because that was the only thing that I really had to watch after that. So I didn't think about it totally. But, yeah, there was some shaking my head thinking, wow, this could have been a really profitable day if the Bills just played a couple extra guys and then won the game 40-3 instead of 38-3. But I'll live. I still was up on the day. I won more than I lost today from this game from the Bills. I want to go in the locker room for a little bit, hear from some of the guys. Let's stay on the theme of the young guys who did well. Shakir was certainly at the top of that list, but there were more that also played well in this game, mostly on defense. The funny thing about Shakir, the only time he looked like a rookie was pretty much after he scored that first touchdown.
I didn't even know what to do. A lot of guys have planned celebrations and things like that. I always told myself I was going to keep the first football that I scored. I was like, obviously I'd keep it. But for some reason I threw it. And then then Josh brought it to me and was like, what are you doing? And I was like, oh, my bad, appreciate it.
We always talk about it. I mean, any guy can start on any other 31 NFL teams. And I was just so blessed to get my opportunity being undrafted. I got to maximize my opportunities when I get them.
It's not a fall-off at all. When nobody else is in there, even the other young guys that come in to play, there's never a fall-off. We all play well together, so I'm just super excited to see everybody get their chance.
We obviously have great veterans on our team, but when the young guys come in, you can see the rookies, the first, second-year players coming out and having that same confidence, that same swag as the older guys.
That's just a test to our team that we're just going to just keep crafting over and over and over and over and get those kids more touchdowns and let them keep learning because they're going to learn from guys like Diggs and Gabe and Josh, and it's just going to keep getting better and better and better.
The league is all about opportunity. You hear it every week, the moment you enter the league to the day you leave it, it's all about opportunity, and I think everyone who's stepping up is taking advantage of that, and they're doing a great job, and we just need it to continue.
To watch some of the guys get their touchdowns and Shakir get that interception, you're always cheering for your team as you're cheering for the young guys, and then once they do it, it gives them the confidence that they can do it again, and that's what we expect from them as teammates, and the coaches expect them, but as long as they expect that from themselves, then they'll be able to do it.
Now, the Bills veterans, they're all excited to see the young guys played well. And after the Shakir touchdown and the Cook touchdown and the Elam interception, I went over to the sideline to see the reaction. And it was fun seeing, Tre'Davious White celebrating with Elam. And Isaiah McKenzie was one of the first guys that, got in Shakir's face and talked about how great that play was. Despite all that, after the game, there was a little bit of the need for the veterans to kind of keep the rookies in their place. And, for example, Stephon Diggs in his post-game press conference got a question about his assessment of Elam and Cook and Shakir and how those guys did. Now, he's doing this with Shakir sitting next to him and a big smirk on his face. Diggs goes, they did all right. So there's still going to be a pecking order in the Bills locker room, even if the Bills vets were happy to see their younger guys play pretty well. AJ?
Yeah, and I also saw this from the Buffalo News' Catherine Fitzgerald. She was talking about how people were interviewing Dalvin Cook, and Stephon Diggs goes, they're talking to him? He only had one touchdown. Come on, what are they talking to him for? He gets interviews, he has only one touchdown? I thought that was pretty funny, too. Stephon Diggs always having the jokes. Speaking of the rookies, the Steelers rookie, I want to touch on Kenny Pickett a little bit. One thing, they only scored 3 points, so it's tough to take a lot. First start, Leslie Frazier defense, things like that. I was really impressed by him able to stand in to the very last second and make that throw. There was so many times, I saw maybe like 5 or 10 times, the pocket was collapsing around him. he didn't, run out of the pocket. He stood up, he made the throw. I thought that was just a really nice point from him in game number 1, something for him to build on. And speaking of rookies as well, a big day for the rookies, Khalil Elam getting his first interception for the Bills. He got picked on a little bit in the first half, bounced back with that interception, and a nice day for him after, a so-so start to his NFL career.
Yeah, I'm with you on Pickett, too. I was impressed. I thought he was calm in the pocket, for the most part, made good decisions, and the 3 points won't do his debut justice. I thought he played pretty solid. With Elam, he was really the victim of a lot of those Pickett passes early in the game, and corners talk all the time about having a short memory, having to make the next play. It's the NFL. The league is built for corners to get beat. And Elam did a good job of coming back and making the interception. Now, he was very introspective afterward, talking about, look, that's not really me. I expect to be better than that. I expect to be great. He admitted the interception did help, but, I think Elam was taking this performance pretty hard. And I don't think it's going to weigh on him too much because, again, at that position, you can't let it. But, he knows this was not the game he wanted to have, even with an interception. I'll be very interested to see how he bounces back. One more thing, too. AJ Epinesa, who got tossed from this game, we talked to him about that little fricas at the end. He said, look, I was trying to just kind of get away. Things were said that were misunderstood. No malice in there. So, I said, this was more than your normal football situation, or is this just, football guys being football guys? He thought it was the latter. So, no big deal, no bad blood. Things got pretty heated. Shaq Lawson, who was not ejected in this game, walked off the field on his own, waving to the Steelers bench like he wanted to do more after the game. Fortunately, there was none of that at all. This was kept on the field. It did get pretty nasty late. Look, this happens in a 35-point blowout, but for the most part, I think everybody walks away. Cooler heads prevailed, all that stuff. There won't be any lasting effect from what happened in this game.
Yeah, I mean, the one of the biggest plays was, Damar Hamlin taking an arguably a late shot against his former college teammate. So, you can't really argue a lot of bad malice, but, things just happen, tempers get high, things like that, when it's a 35-point blowout. Next week, probably not going to be a 35-point blowout. It's the Chiefs. It's the game that everybody's got circled on their calendars. 4:25, Jim Nantz, Tony Romo. So Gabe Davis is going to show up once again. He always plays well for that commentator duo. Thad, your initial thoughts looking ahead to Kansas City next week?
Yeah, I'm